Welcome to a new lecture. In the following lessons, we're going to learn more about the Develop module, and we're going to start from the top of this panel and work our way down. In this specific lesson, we're going to work with selective adjustments and learn what they are for and what they do. So we're going to start from the top of our panel, which is the histogram. Like I mentioned in earlier lessons, the histogram shows you it's basically a representation of the color and the values and the tones of your image. It even gives you some information about the image, like the ISO, the focal length, and other things. So if I stick on here, we could see the blacks, the shadows, exposure, highlights, and whites. This is helpful when you're editing. You would want to know how your image is looking in terms of tones. You don't want to mess the tones up. You don't want to make them too dark or too light. So keeping an eye on this is always helpful. Now, how you could know if your image is balanced is by looking at your histogram. And if all the colors spike in a similar part, you would know that you have a neutral or balanced image. But right now, this image that I have, you can see that the blue spikes on this side, meaning that the blues need to be further adjusted. And these guys aren't exactly perfect, but they're at least in the same place. So when I'm editing, I need to keep an eye on the histogram to make sure that the colors are well balanced, and the tones as well. So that's how it works. I'm going to turn this off right now so we have space for other things. The next thing are these guys. Now these guys are going to be really helpful when you want to affect a certain part of an image without doing the same for every other part. So the first one is cropping. Let's hit crop overlay. And you could crop your image. You could select an area like this maybe and crop that. Let's undo that. I could choose I could choose the dimensions here. I could enter a custom one, choose one of the presets. Now over here, I can change the angle of my image to however much I want. I could, adjust the dimensions and the angle. Let's double click to reset it. And then we have the straightening tool, which straightens your image based off a guideline in the image. For example, I have some, I think those are like walls. I could draw a line based off those walls, and the image will be rotated and straightened according to the line that you draw. Now, this would be helpful when you have these lines. So if I were to choose this image, I don't really have a line to use. There isn't any guides for me, although I could just draw something random. Let's maybe do it this way. It will still do it, but it won't guarantee that it will be straight according to a piece in your image unless you have something like a wall or a ladder or something. And then you could reset all of the adjustments you made here. And that is how you use this tool. I'm going to hit done when you're done. The next tool is spot removal. Let me find an image that I want to remove a certain spot. Let's say we want to remove one of her moles. I'm going to hit this. Another panel opens up. And I could adjust the size here, make it big or small, however I like. And feathering is really important because you want that new section that Lightroom is going to create for you to blend in with all the other parts of the image. So I could increase the feathering or the smoothing of the edges, completely remove it or make it all the way up, and also change the opacity of the new selection. So let's say if I want to do this, I would have to minimize the size. Let's make it smaller. Okay, I'm going to click on, make sure that the area is within the first circle and not the second circle. Clicking this once, and Lightroom automatically picks a place that has similar tones and lighting, but I could change it and tell Lightroom that I want this part, but it has to be somewhere relevant, because then if I put this here, the texture of her lip is not the same as her skin. So just bring it back to where Lightroom chose. I could change the opacity, which wouldn't be helpful if you're trying to cover something up. You would need it to be 100%. And if I remove the feathering, the edges are not going to be blended in. So let me hit done here. You could see, let me try to zoom in. Oops, let's zoom in. Even more. Let's go to 400. You could see, I don't know if you guys could see, but there is some unsmoothness going on. Let's do another example so it's more clear. Let me say I want to edit this part, and I'm going to tell Lightroom to do this. Okay, hit done. Do you guys see that the circle is visible and it's not blended into the image? That is why you need feathering. Let's undo that. Open the spot removal again, and now if I increase the feathering, yeah, I'm going to keep that. Hit done. You're not really seeing the outline that you did before adding the feathering. Let's undo that again, and let's remove the other mole, for example, if you wanted to. Let's increase the, we would have to increase it more. Okay, and I'm going to increase the feather, and now I have successfully removed the moles. But I wanted the moles, I just want to show you guys how it works. So I'm going to come back here to reset settings, and now I have my moles back. Close this off, and that's how the spot removal works. The next one is red eye correction. As the name says, it's for fixing the eyes. It has two options, pet eye and red eye. If you wanted the pet eye, it would do some different adjustments than it would with the human eye. Let's close that. I don't really have a red eye right now, but if I did, I can adjust the selection. Right now I'm just clicking randomly on the eye to show you how it would work even if you don't have a red eye in your image. So let's hit done. And you see darken these areas, but because I don't have a red eye, it detects the wrong place. Let's go back to history, reset settings. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a bit, maybe to 100. Okay. I don't really have a red eye right now, but if you turn this on, you can enable it, and I could just roughly create the eye shape, and Lightroom detects the areas where it would want to correct the red spots. I didn't have a red eye, but I just went ahead and darkened this area, but I'm going to undo that, and now it's lighter. And this wouldn't be helpful if your image doesn't have a red eye to begin with. So I'm going to hit done. I'm not going to enable this. I don't have any red eyes to fix. Let me zoom out, maybe 25%, or actually less. Okay, let's go to 12. And the next thing is the graduated filter. Let's click on that. And that is basically masking a part of your image gradually. So let me create a spot for this filter to work on. Let me go like here, just for the example's sake. And this right here is where you feathered whatever you adjust here. So let me increase the exposure. You can see that the exposure gradually works its way to where we stopped the filter. Maybe I could add like a pink shade, a green shade. Let me undo this. And this is helpful if you want like a special effect onto your image. Maybe if it's a sci-fi style of image, you could add like a blue hue for coming from the corner. You can darken it, add dehaze, add texture, change the temperature, whatever it is you prefer. Then down here you can add noise, and there's range masking, which you could use to sample images. Let's sample this, and there isn't that much, so let's increase that. And now you see it's removing the color a certain bit gradually. Here is kind of desaturated compared to her other parts of the skin. I'm going to use this. Let's turn the range mask off, and this is how you use this this thing right here. You also have the brush. Now what the brush does is that you can actually continue painting on a certain part of the image. Let me just do a random paint, and I can use the feathering. Let's add some feathering and like remove the density, increase the size. Let me just undo this, and I could use this to further accomplish my masking goal, whatever it is that I want to do. Adjust them here, hit done when I am finished. But this is not what we want, so let's reset the settings back to where we were. That's how you use this. Because we're dealing with straight lines, this would be better for using maybe pictures with buildings, landscapes, product photography, and other sorts of things. But when you're dealing with portraits, because faces are usually close to a circle, or they are a circle, you would want to use the radial filter. The radial filter is similar to the graduated filter, except as the name suggests, it's a circle. So if I were to draw a circle, I could adjust the size and how thin or chubby I want it to be. I'll just draw a rough shape of the face. My subject, I'm going to drag it onto her face, adjust it further. I could even rotate it if that helps. Let me get an accurate, rough. Okay, I think this is good. Now that I have an outline of her face, I can use this panel to affect all the things around her, but the things that are inside. If I darken the outside, you can see that it feathers out and does not affect this area. Let's reset that. If I want the outside to have a green hue or a different hue, that's how we do it. If I want clarity, and any other thing that I would like to do, I would do it here to the outside of our selected area. Now, if I want everything done to inside her face, inside the place that I've selected, I would just hit invert. And now everything that I do happens to the inside of the circle and not the outside. And feathering, again, like we mentioned, it's really helpful when you want to blend in the adjustments. If I turn it off, you could see that it's really rough. Wherever I move, it looks like a a regular oval shape and does not blend in with our area. And if you blend it too much, there's barely anything there. So we want to pick that perfect number, which would usually be 50. If I want a color effect, a certain color, I could just open this and choose a random color, but that's not what we want. Let's double click on that, turn saturation off, and that's how you use the radial filter. And again, you could use the brush to further add, let's add something so we can see, further add an area that you couldn't select with this circle. So I'm just going to paint the rest of her body, for example. And now I have a selection that I could use to adjust further to my liking. Let's undo all of this. And that's how you use the radial filter. I'm going to hit done. And the last part of these selective tools is the brush tool. Now the brush tool is made for more smaller areas, maybe the eyes, the lips, the nose bridge, somewhere really specific and small that you can only reach with a small brush. Or you could skip these and just paint the whole thing if you want. So for this example, let me open Navigator and zoom in. Let me zoom into maybe 40 into 400 is too much. Sorry, let's go for like 100. To her eyes. I just want to edit the brightness of her eyes. I'm going to adjust the brush size and the feathering until I'm happy with it. And I'm going to increase, it's already increased. So let's just brush the area, her eyeball. And I could maybe increase the exposure, decrease it, do whatever I want. Change the color as well. If I want it to be greenish, and maybe increase the saturation. And I can make it red, I can make it green, all the other colors, maybe yellow, dehaze it, do anything that I want to do to the image. I can do it here to a selective area. Now let me erase this part. I don't want this area to be affected. Let's just hit erase and remove our selection. Let's go back to brush A, and brush A and B is basically two brush sets that you can create. And if I move my scroll wheel and my mouse, I can increase and decrease the size. Let's say I'm going to make brush A as big as the pupil, and I'm going to make brush B as small as this freckle. So I could switch between the two whenever I'm working with it. And let me turn that off. And I could use this brush tool to affect, again, certain areas that I want. Let's try to give her like a maybe eyeshadow. Let's go up and first of all remove the hazing. And we want to reduce the exposure. And now I've added a pink tint to her eyes. Let's make it like green. I would need to feather out the brush even more if I wanted to blend in. Let's erase this and do it again with a more adjusted brush. Okay, go back to brush A. Going to lower the density, increase the feather, and use it to paint the areas that I want. Let's increase, you can see it's having a gray purplish tone to it. And if you increase the density, you're going to get a lot more intensity in whatever you choose. Lower it and you can get a slight adjustment. And that is how you use the brush tool. So let's hit done. And I'm going back to my history. And I'm going to reset settings. Okay, let's go back to 12%, zoom out. And this is how you use the top bar of your Develop tab. We will get into the basics, tone curves, HSL, color grading, detail, lens correction, transform, effects, and calibration in the upcoming lessons.